De'Aaron Fox is on the move. ESPN is reporting that the Kings have opened up trade talks with Fox, and the expectation is that he will be on a different team prior to the 2025 NBA trade deadline, which is next week, with Fox having a specific team in mind. Now, there's a lot going on here, especially with him having a team in mind, and I have some ideas on what that team is. But first, how did we get here? I talked about this in a video not too long ago. The De'Aaron Fox situation has been brewing in Sacramento for a little while now. He had the opportunity to sign an extension with the team this past offseason. Most people expected him to sign the extension, and he did not, which opened up this exact possibility because De'Aaron Fox is only under contract until 2026. He is a 2026 free agent and now has all of this leverage over Sacramento, which has led to them basically deciding it's time to give up on De'Aaron Fox because he has a team in mind that he's going to go to in free agency in 2026 anyway. And what that means is that Fox has complete control over where he goes because there's no point in trading for him, giving up a bunch of stuff if he's just going to leave in 2026 anyway. And the reasoning behind Fox going ahead and making this move is that he can make more money. If he signs in free agency with the team in 2026, he makes less money than he would if he went ahead, forced a trade, went to the team, then signed an extension with that new team rather than signing outright in 2026. So what are the options? What are the teams that De'Aaron Fox could possibly go to? Well, because I did this video a month ago, I've already got some trades ready to go for you here. Of course, the first option a lot of people are going to talk about is the Houston Rockets. They still need a perimeter creator in many people's minds. They are not that far away from being true top-tier contenders. They're already one of the best teams in the West as it is, and they need a focal point offensive player, which Fox certainly qualifies as. In this construction, it's basically some contracts, Jabari Smith, Cam Whitmore, and 2 first-round picks. You can add first-round picks to this. You can add assets to this, however you want to. The only thing is Houston's not trading Amen Thompson, and they can't trade Jalen Green or Alperen Şengün at this moment because they signed extensions this past offseason. But Houston is absolutely an option. I'm not positive that they're the team, though, because they wouldn't really have cap space in 2026. 2025 is their cap space year, so I'm kind of writing them off at the moment despite the basketball fit. One of the other options here, despite not having cap space in 2026, is Golden State. This is a team that's going to continually be mentioned. They have a bunch of contracts they can put together. They have Kuminga, they have Podziemski, they have first-round picks they can trade, and Fox as the #1 on-ball guard alongside Steph to allow Steph to take less offensive responsibility is something that makes a lot of sense for Golden State, and they finally cash in on the Podziemski-Kuminga combo that they've been holding on to for a little while here. But again, I don't think that's the De'Aaron Fox team. I don't think that's the team that he has in mind. You have to pay attention to the wording of this report. He has an idea of where he wants to go. A couple of other options here. I know Miami has been mentioned specifically in a construction in which Jimmy Butler could potentially get traded elsewhere because I don't know why Sacramento would want Jimmy Butler in the first place. But again, that doesn't really make that much sense to me because they already have key pieces of their core moving forward unless they're trading, Tyler Hero and some stuff to Sacramento. Again, I'm not sure why Sacramento would want Tyler Hero in exchange for De'Aaron Fox. That isn't a deal that makes a ton of sense to me either, which leads me to 2 teams. One that I think is most likely and the other that is kind of a dark horse in the De'Aaron Fox sweepstakes. First up, and the team that a lot of people are throwing around right now is the San Antonio Spurs. Guys want to play with Wemby. They see the impact that he has on each end of the floor. They see the impact that he has on off the floor for a Spurs team that still really isn't that great. And they, just like the Rockets, need a lead guard. They need a perimeter creator. In this construction, you got a couple of contracts you can send out in Keldon Johnson, Zach Collins, and then San Antonio has a bunch of future first-round picks because of some trades they've made in the past with Chicago and Charlotte and Atlanta. And you can add or take away whatever assets you want. You can add more first-round picks. Obviously, the contracts aren't that appealing to Sacramento, so maybe you have to further incentivize them. But this is a construction that could make sense for San Antonio. Then they have Fox, they have Wemby. They still have some more flexibility moving forward because they haven't used their own picks. That's the team that a lot of people are pointing to. But I've got one more team for you that I don't see a lot of conversation about, and I'm a little bit confused about why. Brooklyn Nets have Jordi Fernandez, who's a former Kings assistant, as the head coach of their team. It's a big market. It's a team that has constantly attracted stars, and they have plenty of options, plenty of assets, and a clear path towards a quick turnaround and rebuild with what should be a high pick in the 2025 draft. The goal for the Nets has always been to be open and available in free agency in 2026, which they certainly had cap space to be able to sign De'Aaron Fox in the first place, which makes sense with that phrasing. This was never going to be a 5-year rebuild for the Nets. They want to turn things around pretty quickly while they have access to their own first-round picks. And a trade construction of contracts and a bunch of picks from Brooklyn going to Sacramento would certainly make sense. Now, all of these trades, you can nitpick however you want. You can say that's not enough value for Fox. The actual value, what the actual trade is, isn't important. The important thing is trying to figure out what the team is. And I think the team is certainly amongst this group. The Nets as a dark horse, I think the Spurs as the favorite, and then everybody else in between. The real thing here for Sacramento is this is an absolute disaster. This is the team that 2 years ago was like the beam. They were a great story. They had it all figured out. They finally had a good basketball team in Sacramento. Played at such a high pace. Sabonis was great. They made that trade with Tyrese Halliburton. Then they have De'Aaron Fox, who really has blossomed over the last couple of seasons. And it looked like they had finally turned the corner. A Sacramento team that had been terrible forever. They finally were going to be competent for a handful of years here. And then they went out and got DeMar DeRozan, which was an interesting move after a relatively disappointing season last year, and it just hasn't worked. They've changed head coaches. They've been better lately since the head coaching change, but ultimately, it just hasn't been enough to convince De'Aaron Fox to stay, and he just has his eyes on a different team. And as a 2026 free agent, as someone that took the risk to not sign the contract extension, he's well within his rights to potentially push for a trade and go to a specific team. And now, as a result of this news, he automatically catapults himself to the top of the trade target list. It's no longer Jimmy Butler's season. De'Aaron Fox is the number one trade target out there. The interesting thing for me is not knowing what the team is feels intentional by these reporters. There's a couple of reporters that have been able to say publicly, okay, he wants out, but they won't say the team because I don't think they want the Kings to know the team because they don't want them to then just negotiate with that one team and force them to give up a bunch of stuff. There's a lot of leverage plays here where you want multiple teams to be interested, but then Fox can let it be known, I don't actually want to go to this team. I want to go to this team. And then ultimately, that's probably what's going to happen because that's just the era of the NBA that we are in. Ultimately, if you're a Kings fan, this isn't a fantastic situation. I wouldn't be surprised if a year from now, year and a half from now, they're looking at Malik Monk trades, Domantas Sabonis trades, DeMar DeRozan trades. This was always the risk with bringing in all these guys continually trying to win and losing some flexibility. The possibility of Fox leaving was a thing from the moment he decided not to sign the extension. The good thing for the Kings is that they have their future first-round picks, and some of the contracts and numbers that they have on their books wouldn't be that difficult to trade. I think there'd be interest in Sabonis should they decide to make that move. I think there'd be interest in someone like Keegan Murray as a complementary player if they really wanted to. And again, they have all of their future first-round picks. But given the wording of this, given the situation with free agency, given the fact that this has been made public, makes me think that this is going to happen, that De'Aaron Fox is going to be on a different team prior to next Thursday's trade deadline. That's like 8 days away. It's pretty crazy that all of a sudden we have this new major player. There were whispers and rumors. That's why I made the video a month ago that this could be a possibility. But right now it seems like De'Aaron Fox is going to be on his way to maybe San Antonio, maybe Brooklyn, Miami. I'm sure there's some other teams that are going to try and get involved here, but this is my list, and I think this mystery team is certainly amongst them. Now, to be clear, all this doesn't necessarily mean that Fox is 100% going to be moved. He certainly can play out the season, and he isn't a free agent until 2026, so the Kings still have time to make this move. They can wait till the offseason where maybe some things open up for them a little bit more, but right now the reporting is that Fox is going to try and force himself out before the deadline, which again is not that far away. Because you got to think about it. I mean, it's just going to be really awkward if everybody knows that he doesn't want to be on the team. They're going to play the rest of the year. They're still going to try and push for the playoffs. They've got a new head coach. Lots of changes in Sacramento, and it seems like Fox is going to be on the move.